Namaste to one and all present here. I am Dr. Rachna from JP Institute of Information Technology, Noida, India. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference for giving me this opportunity to share the research being done in our lab in India. I am sorry that due to the spread of COVID-19, I was unable to join this conference physically. But again, many thanks to the organizers to provide me this virtual platform to be present with you. Today I am going to speak about nanotherapeutics from plant-based natural products for respiratory disorders. In this presentation, I will speak about natural products as option for the treatment of respiratory disorders, its disadvantages and overcoming these using nanotechnology. This slide displays majority of those respiratory disorders which are spread all over the world, and these are ARDS, asthma, COPD, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, lung cancer, cystic fibrosis, pneumonia and pleural effusion. Major cause behind these diseases are environmental pollution, unhealthy lifestyle and stress, and evolution of stronger pathogen. Like even in this recent infection of COVID-19, these viruses are stronger and difficult to be treated. It has caused huge loss of lives, economy so far, and still the near future is unpredictable. We have been using these modern days classic drugs to deal with these disorders, and most of the time we treat the symptoms but not the cause of the diseases. Other than this, these drugs are known to be having side effects. Most of them are expensive too. Also, as many diseases are now becoming resistant to these drugs, we need more options. Sometimes more options are created by using combinatorial chemistry, and the drugs are screened through high throughput screening. But here also the problem of their toxic effect remains, which can be checked only when tried on living system. Generally, these approaches are one molecule, one target based, and that's how these drugs do not have the holistic approach which the traditional medicine generally have. They're economic, they're easily affordable, and they have multi-target approach. Plants have a very long relationship with human being, and that's the reason that most of the time they are not found to be toxic while treating the human being, or they may be having with very little side effects. We do have plenty of options to be explored from the plants for various diseases. Most of these drugs are easy to access and economic as well. These drugs carry full trust of the people, as people have been using them traditionally for so long, for so many years. Let's now have a look on the generalized mechanism behind various diseases. So in this slide we see the whole set of oxidants reacting with each other. Now from where this oxidative stress arises? There are various reasons for the same. The stress caused by emotional stress, environmental stress, chemical stress, physical stress can lead to generation of reactive oxygen species and reactive nitrogen species. So here we can see from oxygen the superoxide ion is being created, from where the hydrogen peroxide is being created, and further the hydroxyl ion. Similarly, we have the whole set of nitrogen reactive species, which are, we can see here, nitric oxide radical, and we have nitrates and nitrites radicals being created over there. So these molecules, they get initiated due to any kind of stress, and then these further react with the protein, lipids and nucleic acid present in the cell. So when these molecules get oxidized, their structure and function get affected, and then can lead to various diseases. So what we have seen here is that there is an imbalance created in the cellular environment, which is causing the stress being created. So this mechanism has been observed to be a very common mechanism behind many diseases, not only respiratory diseases but many other diseases like even cancer, diabetes and many more. So what needs to be done with this molecule is that these reactive species have to be neutralized, and the cell has these SOD catalase, GSTs molecule which actually neutralize these molecules. But again, in the stress condition, these molecules also get affected, and then they cannot do their function in a very well manner. Now these oxidative stress generally leads to inflammations, and then further diseases are caused because of the stress. Now what do we need? We need an external source to neutralize these molecules, and that's the general mechanism behind various plant products. So here you have an antioxidant present over here, which is providing an electron to the free radical and neutralizing it. Here we have various herbs shown which are known to treat respiratory disorders. We have Azotoda vesica, Ginkgo biloba, in Ocimum sanctumum, which is called as tulsi. We have Shigenium, which is long, Glyceria glabra, which is Mullety, Endographis, which is Kalmeg, Eucalyptus alba, which is Nilgiri. We have Picrosia curva, which is called as Kutki, and Tinospora cordifolia, which is called as Amrita. So these herbs have this generalized mechanism on which they work, and the second generalized mechanism which is carried by these herbs is their anti-inflammatory mechanism and immunomodulator mechanism. And generally they work upon the innate immunity. And you can see these days also for COVID-19, people are working on their immunity so that they can be protected from the infection. This is a drug found by the Ayush department in India, which specifically deals with Ayurveda, homeopathy, Unani, Siddha medicines, and they have mixed these herbs: Ambalica, Ocimum, Raminalia, Tinospora, Glycera glabra, Piper longum, Gingiber, Piper nigrum, Azotoda vesica, and Curcuma longa, to boost the immunity of the population so that they will not be infected. Now, what these herbs have in them which actually work to treat these diseases? There are certain active phytochemical groups present with these herbs, which are tannins, lignans, flavonoids, terpenoids, carotenoids, and glucosinolates, and many more. We have these herbs in the form of fruits, vegetables, leaves, roots, bark, flowers, buds. We use their herbal extract, essential oil extracted, powdered, juices, gums. We make tea, which is also called as quath, pills, syrup, asavas, avli from these herbs. And these are the one which actually are obtained from Ayurvedic, the great traditional medicine from India. So this is the way we actually obtain the product, or you can say the formulation, from the plants which are used to treat respiratory disorders and many more disorders. So this is the basic behind the natural options we have from Indian Ayurveda. Now everything is not good with these plants, and they do also have certain constraints. And then what is the solution for that? The first and the foremost problem here is that still they have not been proven to the Western world like we have the proofs for the advanced medicine. They have small shelf life and they have poor bioavailability. So how to deal with this problem is by utilizing nanotechnology, which can increase their stability, which can reduce their biodegradability, and can improve the tissue distribution. Possibility of sustained delivery can be obtained, and they can also enhance the pharmacological activity of the natural product. Now, even if we are not going to deal with respiratory disorders, lungs are anyway our favorite site for drug delivery. Now, how and why? Lungs do have large surface area for drug absorption of the alveolar epithelium, which is around 70 to 140 square meter. They have massive vascularization and thin vascular epithelial barrier, which is around 0.1 to 0.5 micrometer. If you compare with the intestinal epithelium, it is 20 to 30 micrometer. It also provides considerable permeation and mass transfer to the central blood circulation. It avoids hepatic first pass metabolism, and it has relatively less local proteolytic activity in comparison to gastrointestinal tract. So we can see here that whatever is given through lungs will be able to reach the site of action. So we will need lower doses to treat the diseases, and that's how we can also reduce the side effects. In case of inhalation, it's an attractive alternative to the IV administration, and it is non-invasive in nature, and even the therapeutic molecule like proteins, peptides and DNA or RNA can also be given by this route. It is also important to mention that pulmonary route allows 10 to 200 fold greater bioavailability in comparison to other non-invasive routes. So in all aspects, lung are the favorable site of drug delivery for each and every case. Now, we talked about natural products, we talked about nanotechnology, we talked about lungs as a site of delivery. But using nanotechnology to reach lungs also has major challenges, such as we have to obtain desired size range to reach the alveoli. Also, the formulation which are given through this route generally require nebulization most of the time, and then due to shear forces the formulation may lose its stability. Also, sometimes the particle can get deposited inside, and these particles also are prone for mucociliary clearances. Sometimes they get adhere, and sometimes enzymatic activity of mucous gel or sputum degrade them. If the size is not optimal in these cases, they will be uptaken by alveolar macrophages, and even the epithelial cells can internalize these particles and they will not be available for the treatment. Let's see how particle size or shape can affect the mode of action, or you can say efficiency of the treatment of these particles. Particles less than 5 nanometer will be rapidly cleared from the blood circulation or with the help of renal clearances. Particles in the range of 5 nanometer to 15 micrometer will be uptaken by mononuclear phagocyte system of liver, spleen, lung and bone marrow. And it has been observed that the efficient targeting size for pulmonary capillary is 6 to 10 micrometer. Particles which are greater than 50 micrometer can be eliminated by mechanical filtration by capillary beds of the lungs, and this can lead to the risk of a lung embolism. Particle shape, like we have discoid shape, filamentous or spherical. If you have discoidal or filamentous, they prolong the circulation and reduce the clearance by mononuclear phagocyte system. But there are possible concerns about obstruction of the pulmonary vessel by elongated particles. Now, how we can deal with these kinds of situations where the clearance is a problem or degradability is a problem or phagocytosis is a problem? We can modulate the surface of the particle, like in case of we have example of pegylation, which prolongs blood circulation and avoid uptake by mononuclear phagocyte system. So that's how the particle size and shape and the surface modification can actually influence the activity of these nanoparticles. So the major type of nanoformulation which are available or more popular are liposomes, polymeric nanoparticles, solid lipid nanoparticles, nanospheres, nanocapsules and nanoemulsions. And there actually are many more, but these are the major ones. This slide represents the schematics of these majorly known, popularly known nanoparticles: solid lipid nanoparticles, liposomes, polymeric nanoparticles, polymeric micelles, nanosphere, nanocapsule and emulsion. Nanoemulsions can be of two types: water in oil and oil in water type of emulsions. Now let's see one by one what properties they have, how they are beneficial or they are having some drawbacks. So polymeric nanoparticles are particular dispersion of solid particles with a size range 10 to 1000 nanometer. They can be programmed or designed for multifunctional nanodevices. They improve pharmacokinetics and therapeutic efficiency. They can be made by using biocompatible polymers like albumin, chitosan and heparin to deliver oligonucleotides, DNA, protein along with the drug. Nanoparticles constructed from polymeric backbone structured building blocks offer precise control over their architecture, surface characteristics and supramolecular assembly. And there are many examples where people have used polymeric nanoparticles for treatment of various diseases. Nanoemulsion ranges from 10 to 100 nanometer, and as I said, they can be of two types, water in oil or oil in water types. Depending upon the type or the characteristics of the drug molecule, hydrophobic or hydrophilic, we have to choose whether we have to take water in oil or oil in water. They also have an interfacial film of surfactant molecule whose area is directly influences the drug transport properties and stabilizes the nanoemulsions. They carry multiple benefits, that they have higher solubilization capacity, thermodynamic stability and longer shelf life. There have been reports where lung cancer cell lines were treated with nanoemulsions having curcuminoid molecules and shown to be working against these cell lines, killing them with different dead receptor pathways. Coming to liposomes, generally they are spherical shaped closed colloidal structure which have the ability to self-assemble and are composed of similar material as of cell membrane. Generally they have central aqueous space. So the positives which are associated with the liposomes are their selective passive approach to target tissue. They increase the efficacy because of increase in bioavailability and therapeutic index. There is increase in stability and reduction in toxicity because of encapsulation. They improve pharmacokinetic behavior and they increase the circulation lifetime of the drug. Coming to solid lipid nanoparticles, they combine various advantages of liposome, emulsion and even polymeric nanoparticles. They minimize many of the drawbacks of these above stated nanoparticles. Here we have an example of SLN-RSV where resveratrol is loaded as a drug within the solid lipid nanoparticles, and the size of the nanoparticle was 180 nanometer and it could move swiftly from the cell membrane. Then coming to nanocapsules, they are vesicular hollow polymers that encapsulate the drug solution within a polymeric membrane. The size range for this is 10 nanometer to 1000 nanometer, and so that this is given or administered intravenously, they reach the target and release the encapsulated drug. In this case also, they protect the drug from rapid degradation. They are composed of aqueous or oily core surrounded by a thin polymer membrane. They can shield peptide, hormones, proteins, enzyme, drug, metabolites from the environment against biological and chemical degradation. They actually improve the drug's stability and bioavailability. We can modulate their behavior by using different polymers which are pH sensitive, temperature sensitive or redox sensitive. This will allow us to actually release the drug at the site of action by using these properties. We can control the release and target specific delivery of drugs made up of natural drugs encapsulated in natural or synthetic polymers. So these molecules are highly controllable and can definitely use to release the drug at the site of action, as we can use different polymers having different kind of sensitivity. Nanosphere, they have the size range of 10 to 200 nanometer and composed of polymer matrix. So the entire matrix is made up of polymers. Generally, in case of nanosphere, the molecules or the drug molecules are actually attached to the surface by amide or ester bonds. But there are other options as well, like they can be absorbed, they can be encapsulated or entrapped within the bulk of molecular matrix. They can be amorphous, they can be crystalline, and they can protect the drug from enzymatic and chemical degradation. The drug is released generally when you hydrolyze the bonds made between the drug and the polymers. The advantages of using nanosphere are that they reduce toxicity, they are easy to administer, they can be site targeting, and we can also control the release of drug, and they can be easily penetrated in the tissues. So what we have seen so far, we have seen that how natural products have so many options as drug molecules, but they have certain drawbacks. We can overcome these drawbacks by using nanotechnology, and we have discussed all these nano formulation in the slides. Now I will share few of my results that we have developed the nano formulation to treat the respiratory disorders. So first of all, I would like to discuss about the microemulsion or nanoemulsion we developed with ginkgo biloba extract. Ginkgo biloba is known to work upon pulmonary fibrosis, hypoxic pulmonary hypertension, anti-inflammatory properties, and for treating asthma. Though this herb actually is very much known to treat CNS disorders, but it also is able to treat respiratory disorders. The Chinese herb. Now, as I said, emulsions can be of two types, water in oil and oil in water nanoemulsion, where there are different layers on the top. So when you have water in oil, there will be an oil layer on the top and water will be inside, and vice versa. So here I will not be able to disclose the constituent which we have used in this formulation because of certain reasons. But I will just show you certain results which we have got for this nano emulsion. We have got the particle size as 259 nanometer in this case, which was having PDI index of 0.186 and a zeta potential of minus 9.87. We used standardized ginkgo biloba extract EGB 761 with oil, water, and surfactant and co-surfactant. So this slide shows you how the size is distributed for the particle and how the zeta potential is coming around 9. And here we have a TM image showing you the particle size. This is a bigger image of the TM, and we can see that they are near to spherical structures, and not very near to, but yes, they are spherical in structure, and they are enclosing the herbal extract inside, which is shown to be black in color in this diagram. This slide shows you the LCMS data, FTIR analysis of the microemulsion, which shows us that how the herbal extract has been encapsulated inside the excipients. Down we have certain other parameters like viscosity, conductivity, pH and density mentioned here, and all these parameters are in the range and actually are in optimal range to be given through intranasal route and can be beneficial for the treatment of diseases. Next, I have an artificial lung surfactant for the treatment of ARDS. For this, we have to first of all understand how the lung surfactant functions. Now how it works, let us see here. We have different sizes of alveoli in the lung, and when we exhale or inhale, the sizes changes. When our alveoli is very small, there is a large pressure difference, and the smaller alveoli tends to collapse and the larger alveoli will not collapse. So what happens during exhalation, the size of alveoli reduces, and if we don't have any measure to reopen it again while inhalation, it will collapse and we won't be able to breathe. So what happens in this case, we have to have a lower surface tension inside the lung so that the alveoli will not collapse. So this pulmonary surfactant is basically made up of phospholipids and many surfactant specific proteins, and they lower down the surface tension inside the lungs. Imagine a balloon which is filled with water, and if you take out the water, how the balloon will collapse, and it will be difficult to again fill air inside that balloon. But if the balloon is stopped at a particular size, then it will be easier to fill in the air again. So what happens in the case of lungs or lung alveoli, we have pulmonary surfactant which lowers down the surface tension, and it actually makes a very rigid film in the inner lining of alveoli which protects it for further collapsing. So as we can see here in this figure, this is an alveoli. The surfactant is being produced by the alveolar type 2 cells, and it actually surrounds or layers the inner lining of the alveoli. Here these small molecules are made up of phospholipids. So when you actually squeeze down this alveoli further, these molecules will be so rigid, standing near to each other, that they will not allow this alveoli to go further decrease in size. So that's how the surfactant protects the alveoli to get collapsed. So what can happen if in case of various conditions like burning, drowning, or maybe in accidents, or maybe certain infectious diseases or inflammatory diseases, if this lung surfactants get inhibited, then there are chances for this alveoli to get collapsed. And this is the same situation as in case of COVID-19 as well. The patient would have problem in breathing because these alveoli are getting collapsed, and there is a inhibition of this lung surfactant. So there are certain inhibitors which can enter the alveoli. They are known to be biophysically active inhibitor and chemically active inhibitors. So biochemically active inhibitors can be blood plasma, unsaturated lipids, free fatty acids, and chemically active inhibitors could be lytic enzyme like lipases, proteases, or reactive oxidants. So when these elements enter into the alveoli, they can inhibit the function of the lung surfactant. So here we have a structure of liposome, where you can see the bilayer of the liposome lipid molecules, and we can entrap the drug molecule in the inner aqueous phase. Now what we have done to simulate these situations where a person meets an accident and we may have blood or serum or plasma which is being filling up in the alveolar spaces and inhibiting the lung surfactant, we have used Langmuir-Bloch jet trough to simulate these conditions. So when you compress this equipment, the molecule will be coming close to each other, and a situation of like we are exhaling will be created or simulated in the lab. And as you can see, the blue dots, the surface tension start from 70, which is a normal surface tension of water, and while compressing it, it will reduce down to 0. That's the actual situation we get inside the lung alveoli. When we mix blood derived components in the subsurface of the Langmuir-Bloch jet trough, they will, while compressing, the surface tension will come down, but it may remain, as we can see in this case of the RBC membrane, it does not go to zero, and this may cause a problem in breathing. So we have taken a specific case where it is a traumatic condition, an accidental situation where a person is meeting an accident and these things have been accumulated, and it can happen in many other cases. So what can happen here? Fibrinogen, hemoglobin or platelets or RBC or lyse blood can accumulate in the lungs and can inhibit the lung surfactant function. Now what would be the situation to deal with this? This could be that we provide some artificial lung surfactant from outside which can neutralize, or you can say overcome, the inhibitory effect of these components inside the alveoli. There have been many examples of ALEC or Exosurf people have been using, and there are certain natural surfactant obtained from animals also, but so far not much success has been obtained to reduce down the surface tension to zero. And even if the case we reach that, the patient might not survive due to many other reasons, because it has many other properties like quick absorption of the lung surfactant to the surface. All these activities are also there. So what we did is to again simulate similar kind of condition, we first of all prepared DPPC liposome. Diphosphatidylcholine is the major molecule which actually is present inside the alveoli and makes that rigid layer. So we prepared those liposome, and these are the TM image of those liposome. In the LASIK grid, we can see certain different sizes of these liposomes, starting from maybe around 20-40 nanometer to 200 nanometer. Now these liposomes were then mixed with the blood components. Here we have mixed it with albumin, the major protein present in the blood or serum or plasma, and we can see how they have increased the size of liposome. And a very interesting characteristic has been seen here, that one liposome is engulfing the other ones. Further, when we mixed these liposome with serum, the number of liposome is reduced to negligible. So this slide shows the summary of this experiment, that how pure DPPC has smooth liposomes present which are unilaminar. Albumin has aggregated these liposome, and serum actually have destroyed the liposomes. So interaction of albumin enhanced the aggregation of the liposome preparation, and crude serum actually has disrupted the liposomal structure completely. Here we have an image where DPPC was mixed with essential oil, that is eucalyptus oil, in different proportions, and we could see that we could obtain the liposomes using eucalyptus oil with DPPC. And when we tried this formulation in vitro condition, simulating the similar condition again, we could reach near zero surface tension within seconds. So that's how we have prepared this formulation, and we also have got 2 patents on this formulation. So what we have established is, simplified blood components cannot represent the complexity of the blood related agent. Like in case of albumin, it could not destroy the entire thing of the liposome, but serum could. So complex inhibitor can actually do drastic degradation of the liposomal structure inside the alveoli, and DPPC liposome along with essential oil can actually overcome the inhibition. DPPC liposome alone cannot do so. So what we can conclude from this presentation is that if there is a collaborative research of herbal drugs and nanotechnology, it has a very great potential, because nanotechnology can improve solubility, therapeutic efficacy, it can enhance ability, extend half-life, and reduce immunogenicity. It can also increase the drug release sustainability. So whatever shortcomings we have with the conventional treatment can be overcome by using nanotechnology, and that's why I took this topic to discuss with you regarding the potential of using the old traditional knowledge to be combined with advanced nanotechnology as a better option to treat respiratory disorders. Here are certain references which I have used in the entire presentation. These are my PhD students in my lab, Manisha Singh, which is worked upon ginkgo biloba, and Mamta Pant and Sujata Basu. This is the building of RJP Institute of Information Technology in Noida. These are my guides, Professor Rinti Banerjee and Professor Jallesh Jibalare in IIT Bombay, with whom I worked upon the lung surfactant project. So thank you so much for listening to me and allowing me to discuss nanotherapeutics for respiratory disorders with you. Thank you so much.